Hi guys, this is week 40 Project Life and I'm doing something a little bit different today. I've got these two awesome stamp sets to use. You may notice that's might be my perfect unicorn number stamp there. That's the Bolton Street Alphas from Kellie Stamps. Bolton Street Numbers, and I've also got the Bishop Street Alphas. So I wanted to work with these two today and I didn't really know what else to use. So I just went and grabbed my enormous box of Project Life cards that are just unused. I barely use any of them. You can see the huge stack I'm having to go through here to even find something to work with. So the first thing I did pick out, not from this box, but that was been sitting on my desk for a while, is just some little leftover watercolor pieces. You can actually see the photo of the watercolor piece I was working on that I trimmed these pieces off, and they were so pretty that I wanted to keep them. So I trimmed them down to 3x4 and they've just been sitting on my desk ever since. So I'm going to use one of those. I figured two might be a little bit much. And then I'm going through the stack of 4x6 cards and papers that I've got here. And actually the one that I picked out for the bottom right is a piece of packaging. It came from, I'm sure it came from something Willow Lane-ish. And it's got this really pretty scalloped gold glitter printed edge on it. So I'm going to use that. That was me just showing you how I've actually got these 3x4 cards divided. The 4x6 ones are all just in a pile, and the 4x6 ones, the 3x4 ones, I did go through a while ago to try and purge a few, which didn't really help that much, and I did split them into categories. They're usually in sort of rainbow order, but I have got these ones set in categories, and I can't tell you whether that's more helpful or not because I haven't used them enough to know. As you can see, there's huge, handfuls of them here, so I don't know how I'm going to ever get through all of these cards without some serious intention behind it. So when I've got new kits coming in monthly, it's really hard to go back and use some of this old stuff. So I'm going to put my thinking cap on about how I can make a serious dent in this stash. I picked out one really plain 3x4 card, 4x6, I'm getting my numbers all confused, for the title card. You can't see it here in the camera, but it does have a tiny little pink polka dot on it. And then I've just chosen a really plain journaling card. It's got the same sort of blue that's in the flower vase and my coffee. And I had picked out a sort of matching, I'm sure it's a Maggie Holmes crepe paper print, but it was just a little bit too much. So instead I grabbed this card here, and I think it might even be a printable that I've printed. It's from Brandy Kincaid, and I just liked the way the green kind of picked up just the other tiny little spots of green in the spread. Now I glued that down and I'm pulling it back up again. I want to move it down just a smidgen because I decided to add some washi tape to the selfie photo of myself, just again to tie in the gold that's on that Maggie Holmes crepe paper piece down the bottom. Just adding those tiny little touches of gold on both of those smaller photos. It's going to help tie that all in a little bit. Now the photo of the world's most perfect avocado down here, it just kind of gets a bit lost on that cream colored background. So I want to add just a little bit of brighter color. There's a few pops of bright color in here, but otherwise the whole page is kind of quite muted. Well, not muted, but sort of pastel-y. So I, again, in the effort to use things, pulled out my 4x6 cards. This really pretty pink polka dot I had seen when I was going through those. And I've just used that to mount the photo, so it gives me a little bit more color down the bottom there, and I use up another card, so that's a win-win. Now, like I said, I'm not using really anything in the way of embellishments or anything this week. The washi tape was about it, but I do have these awesome alpha stamps. They were part of, I guess, like a Christmas release for Kellie Stamps this month. They're kind of sketchy candy cane striped looking alphas, but I really love them. Definitely not specific to Christmas at all. So this is what I'm going to use for my spread. I'm just going to stamp some words on here. So I want to pick out a blue ink rather than going for black. There's not a lot of black on here, in fact barely any at all, so I just want to keep it again they're sort of brighter fun colours rather than adding the heavy black in there. So I'm going to stamp Yum. I'm going to stamp some really simple words, to be honest, on this spread. And I'm using a Hero Arts ink. I wasn't sure how that was going to stamp on the photo, but it actually stamped fine. It stamped totally fine, which I was relieved about. I was anticipating pulling up half my photo when I stamped that, but it stamped really nicely, probably because these stamps aren't solid because they've got so many lines in them, so that stamped really nicely. Now I'm about to make a massive mistake. I liked how that worked. I decided to stamp on a few of the other photos. I've got this photo of me doing a bit of a planning session with a coffee, and I want to stamp the word plan on there, and instead of just stamping it out, I decided to stamp it all in one go to save time, and it looks like the pits. The spacing between those letters is so bad. It's so bad, I actually went and reprinted the photo because I couldn't handle it. This page is going to be really simple, and so a mistake like that is just going to be glaringly obvious. So I reprinted the photo, and you know that I never do that. That's how badly I felt about it. And while that was reprinting, I did go ahead and type my journaling for the week on the journaling card that I had picked out, and I just used my typewriter to do that. It's just a vintage typewriter, but I do have one of the typecast ribbons in there, so I've typed it in pink, and you can just see the difference that stamping those letters individually makes in the end. So I saved no time at all. In fact, it took me way longer than it should have, and it cost me a whole nother photo. So lesson learned, stop trying to cheat. Now I've obviously stamped 2 words. I'm going to stamp more than that. So my next one, I'm going to stamp stop. My sort of theme for this week was self-care. It was a bit of a crap week mental health wise, to be honest, guys, and so this page is all about the little things that I was doing this week to try and just take care of myself a bit better. I had a bit of a brain dump. I took some time to play creatively. I just allowed myself to sit in that space for a little bit. The perfect avocado also helped, as did the coffee, but I've stamped stop on the picture of the flowers because I thought it would be a great idea. I mean, who doesn't get cheered up with flowers? So I cut some jonquils, I bought them inside, and the first 30 seconds was probably great until my allergy loving self just went absolutely crazy. So the flowers lasted not that long. I had to put them back outside because my head was absolutely pounding having them in here. So that was a real shocker. So I put stop because stop and smell the flowers, yes, but stop. Don't bring them inside. I really wanted to stamp coffee on the coffee photo, but it didn't happen. It was never going to fit on there the way I've printed it. So in the end, I just stamped yes, and I'm going to move on to my title card. Now I'm going to do some repeat stamping with my numbers. That's probably not what you were expecting me to use these numbers for, but the Bishop Street Alpha that I'm using this week does also have numbers in it, which is always my favorite. Love a stamp set with numbers in it as well, but I do want to use these really awesome Bolton Street numbers. So I'm putting 40 on the block, and yes, I know I've just said about stamping them twice, stamping it together on one block, but this is gonna work. I just don't know what color to stamp it is my only problem at the moment, so I'm just gonna test a couple of inks just off to the side on this scratch paper. I really love that Catherine Pooler ink. That's probably one of my favorites at the moment, but it is just way too dark. So I went back to the drawing board, the ink drawer in fact, and tried to find a lighter ink, which is this pink lemonade from Colour Theory, and as you can see, much more subtle pink, because I'm going to stamp over top of this stamping. And what I decided to do, instead of just eyeballing it, this is probably the most you'll ever see me planning stamping, so enjoy. I went and got my I think these are alpha guides, but they actually work really well for stamping as well. I've lined that up so that I can see the center of my card, and so that where I'm stamping is in the center. And I've actually stood up so that I can see what I'm doing. Hopefully you don't get any of the top of my head in here without me sticking my head straight over it. So it's a little bit awkward, but probably easier for placement. I've started in the middle row, and I've worked my way out, and I'm going to do a row along the bottom and a row along the top, just offsetting those numbers so that I get a nice big pattern of 40 across this card. Now, the ink looks a little bit dark at the moment. It will lighten up as it dries, but I'm really happy. It just gives me that sort of subtle pattern in there, and I'm then going to use the Bishop Street alphas over top to sort of put my title in here. So again, I'm gonna do some planning. I just want to work out where the middle of week 40 stamped out is actually going to be. So I'm using the back of these stamp sheets. It's very handy having that little piece of acetate there to be able to put the alphas onto, and then I'm going to use my ruler again to line that up and work out where it's going to be, which just happens to be between the E and the K. So then I can line my ruler up here and then stamp those out one at a time. And again, I'm going to use that same blue ink to try and tie everything together. This is stamping on card rather than paper, so it does come off a little bit darker than on the photos. Card rather than paper, I meant photo paper. So it does look a little bit darker, but because that's the title for the week, it doesn't really matter too much to me. So I like how this turns out anyway. Love having the blue up there as well. It just gives a bit more consistency to the entire page. So I stamped out week, and just to try and get things even more even, I'm going to work backwards now from the 0. Again, just lining up my ruler, working out where the W ended and what the equivalent would be on the other side. And then I can put my 40 in backwards, and hopefully everything is straight and centered, and possibly the straightest stamping you've ever seen me do on a week of project life. Now I do need something to put my dates on. I wasn't really sure that I wanted to just stamp it straight onto the card, so instead I went back into my stash and I found these gold labels. I don't know if they were from last year or the year before. They're a December daily label from Ellie Edwards. It's probably a little bit larger than what I would have wanted to use, but again, I want to tie the gold in, and I just want to use what I've got. I just want to use my stash up. So I'm using my ruler again to get things nice and centered and straight, and then I can stick that down. I was a tiny bit worried about stamping on this label. It seemed a little bit slick to me, but I also didn't want to go get my stays on ink. I already have my memento here, so I'm going to give it a whirl and be really, really careful. I am using that little backing sheet again from the stamp set to mask the stamping, because the label's not quite long enough when I've got 2 different months like this. And again, I've shocked myself with the stamping. It might be the best date stamp I've done all year. And that is this week all done. Love that I made a minuscule dent in my stash, and I love these 2 alphas. So if you do as well, I will leave a discount code for you below in the description box, so you can save yourself 10% at the Kellie stamp store. Don't forget to go and check that out. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, there are a couple more videos on screen, or why not check out my Patreon page? There are even more videos over there. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye!